Lake houses are sold as peaceful escapes, remote, private, the perfect place to disconnect. But isolation is exactly what predators look for. And sometimes the person you should fear most is the one who handed you the keys. My girlfriend Emma and I rented this lake house in northern Minnesota for 2 weeks last summer. We had both been working insane hours and just needed to get away. Found the place on one of those vacation rental sites. The photos looked incredible. Right on the water, private dock, fire pit, the whole deal. And the price was really cheap, like way cheaper than other places. But the reviews were good, all 5 stars, so we booked it for the last 2 weeks of July. The drive from Minneapolis took about 5 hours. Got to the property around 2 in the afternoon, and it was perfect. The house was tucked in among tall pine trees, and the lake was right there, maybe 50 feet from the back deck. The owner had left a key in a lockbox, and there is a welcome basket inside with local coffee, homemade cookies, and a handwritten note with Wi-Fi password and instructions. That first day was perfect. We unpacked, went for a swim, grilled burgers for dinner, sat out on the deck until midnight drinking wine and watching the stars. You could see the Milky Way, which neither of us had ever really seen before. I woke up the next morning around 9. Emma was still asleep. I made coffee and was sitting at the kitchen table when I noticed a car parked on the access road maybe 100 yards away. Dark blue sedan just sitting there. I figured it was someone fishing or hiking, watched it for a few minutes, then forgot about it. We spent the morning kayaking. When we got back around noon, the car was gone. And that's when I realized it had been facing our house, like parked where whoever was inside would have had a direct view of our property. "Did you see that car this morning?" I asked Emma. "What car?" "There was one parked on the access road for like an hour." She shrugged. "Probably just someone looking at the lake." But it bugged me. The next couple days were great, though. We fell into this easy routine. Sleep late, swim, read, cook dinner, watch movies. On Tuesday morning, I woke up early to use the bathroom and noticed the smoke detector above the door had a small red light blinking on it. Smoke detectors usually have a green light or no light, right? This was red and blinking in this steady pattern. I grabbed a chair and stood on it to look closer. The smoke detector looked normal, but that red light was definitely there, visible through one of the vent holes. I thought about taking it down, but didn't have a screwdriver and wasn't sure if I should mess with the owner's stuff. Made a mental note to ask about it later. Mentioned it to Emma at breakfast, and she said maybe it was just a different brand that used red LEDs. Made sense. We decided to spend the day exploring the area. Left around 10, didn't get back until almost 4. That's when I knew something was wrong. The front door was open. Not wide open, but definitely not shut, and I specifically remembered locking it. Emma had even made a joke about me being paranoid, checking it twice. "Did we leave that open?" I said. Emma looked and her face went pale. "No, you locked it." Eventually, I grabbed the tire iron from the trunk and went to check. Called out, but nobody answered. Did a walkthrough and everything looked normal. Nothing out of place. Laptop still on the table. Emma's purse on the counter. We decided the lock must have malfunctioned. Most logical explanation. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 2 in the morning, I got up for water and noticed the smoke detector in the living room had the same red blinking light. I walked over and looked up at it, and now that I was really looking, the smoke detector seemed different. The vents on the front were angled like they were designed to point down into the room. My stomach dropped. I woke Emma and we searched the entire house, found 4 of them total. One in the bedroom over the bed, one in the bathroom angled toward the shower, one in the kitchen facing the table, and the living room. They were cameras. Hidden cameras disguised as smoke detectors. Emma started crying. 4 days. Someone had been watching us for 4 days. All those conversations, all those intimate moments. Someone had been watching. "We need to call the police," Emma said. "We don't have signal here. We'll have to drive." We didn't pack, just grabbed phones, wallets, keys. It was 3 in the morning and pitch black, but we didn't care. Drove toward town and about 10 minutes out got enough signal to call 911. Met 2 deputies at a gas station. They followed us back to the house. Searched it and confirmed what we'd found. 4 cameras positioned to record different areas. They asked questions about the owner, the listing, anything suspicious. I told them about the car and the door being open. A detective showed up hours later. They took the cameras as evidence, wanted full statements. We spent most of the day in our car while they processed the scene. The detective told us that afternoon this wasn't the first complaint about this property. Another couple had reported something similar 6 months earlier, but they didn't find cameras then. The owner probably removed them and put them back up once things died down. He had multiple properties across Minnesota and Wisconsin. Before I go on, I need to say something. If you're listening to this right now, it would mean everything if you subscribe to this channel. My mother told me I'd never even reach 1,000 subscribers with these stories. She said nobody cares about experiences like this. But I think they do. I think these stories need to be heard so people know what's out there. Anyway, back to what happened. We drove home that evening. Emma stayed at her sister's place for days because she didn't feel comfortable anywhere. The investigation took months. The owner was eventually arrested. He'd been doing this for at least 3 years. They found hundreds of hours of footage on hard drives in his house. Dozens of couples and families who had no idea. Some videos had been uploaded to websites where people pay to watch. We got contacted by other victims once it became news. Our names weren't released, but everyone in our circle knew because we'd posted about the vacation on social media before we figured out what was happening. Emma and I broke up 4 months later. We tried, but too much had been damaged. Every time we were together, it reminded us of what happened. Neither of us could get past it. I haven't taken a vacation since, haven't stayed anywhere that isn't my own apartment. I check smoke detectors compulsively, cover my laptop camera with tape, notice every small red light in any room. The guy pleaded guilty, got 8 years. 8 years for destroying people's sense of privacy and safety. It doesn't seem like enough. The whole thing was designed to make us feel safe. The cheap price, the good reviews, which were mostly fake, the welcome basket, all calculated to make us trust him. And it worked. I inherited my uncle's cabin when he died in October 2021. Just this old place on a lake up in northern Wisconsin. He'd bought it in the 80s, used to fish there on weekends. I'd been there a few times as a kid, but didn't remember much. After the estate got sorted, I figured I should check it out before deciding to sell. The real estate agent said lakefront property was in demand, but I wanted to see it first, spend a weekend there, go through my uncle's stuff. I work in IT doing remote support, so I can work from anywhere, but the cabin had no internet, no cable, just electricity and well water. The agent warned me it was isolated, about 40 minutes from the nearest town, end of a gravel road, no neighbors within a mile. Left Milwaukee on a Friday afternoon in early January. Gray winter day, sky and snow blending together. The further north I got, the worse the roads became. My phone's GPS worked until I turned onto the gravel road, then lost signal completely. Found it around 5:30, right as the sun was going down. Looked worse than I remembered. Paint peeling, shutters hanging crooked, 6 inches of snow on the roof, but still standing. The keys stuck in the lock, but eventually turned. The smell hit me immediately. Mildew and old wood and something fishy. Flipped the light switch and was relieved it worked. The cabin was one big room, small kitchen, wood stove in the middle, sleeping loft with a ladder, tiny bathroom under the loft. My uncle's stuff was everywhere. Fishing rods, tackle boxes, old magazines, coffee mug on the counter with dried coffee still in it. I'd brought supplies, food for 3 days, firewood, sleeping bag. Spent the first hour making the place livable. Got the wood stove going, threw out anything bad in the fridge, cleared the counter and table. By the time I had everything sorted, it was fully dark. No street lights, no neighboring houses, no distant town glow. Complete blackness beyond the windows. Made dinner, heated up soup, sat eating while scrolling through photos on my phone. No signal, but I had downloaded music and photos. Went to bed early, maybe 9. The loft was freezing. I slept in my clothes inside the sleeping bag. Wind was picking up, rattling windows, making the cabin creak. I woke up to something hitting the door. At first, I thought it was the wind, branch falling maybe. But then I heard it again. 3 distinct thuds. Knock, knock, knock. Deliberate. Someone was knocking. I lay there trying to figure out what to do. Had to be past midnight. Who knocks on a door in the middle of nowhere at midnight in January? The knocking came again. Same pattern. 3 knocks,
Silence. I climbed down the ladder quietly and stood in the middle of the cabin, walked to the door and spoke through it. "Who's there?" Nothing, just silence and wind. I waited, but there was no response. After a couple minutes, I convinced myself that it was the wind, or a branch, or a deer. Wildlife, this was the woods. Went back to the loft and tried to sleep, but was too wired. Eventually dozed off. Next time I woke up, it was to breaking glass. I sat up fast, nearly hit my head. The sound came from near the kitchen. Grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and pointed it down. One of the windows by the door was shattered. Cold air pouring in, snow blowing through, and on the floor, about 3 feet from the window, was a rock, the size of a baseball. Someone had thrown a rock through the window. I climbed down and grabbed the fireplace poker, went to the broken window, and shined my light outside. Nothing, just darkness and snow and trees. "I've called the police," I shouted through the window. Complete lie, since I had no signal. No response. I dragged a chair over and wedged it under the doorknob, grabbed my stuff, and climbed back to the loft. If someone broke in, I'd at least hear them coming. I didn't sleep at all, just sat with the poker across my lap, watching, listening. Around 4 in the morning, I heard footsteps outside. Not trying to be quiet, just walking. Slow, deliberate steps going around the cabin. Front to side to back to front. Circling. Making sure I knew they were out there. The footsteps made another circuit, then another. Finally stopped somewhere near the front door. Silence. I sat frozen until first light started showing. Climbed down and went to the broken window. Footprints in the snow. Fresh ones all around the cabin. Big prints, bigger than mine. They led from the woods to the cabin, circled it multiple times, then headed back into the trees. I didn't think. Grabbed keys, phone, jacket, and ran to the car. Didn't care about leaving everything else. The car was covered in snow, hands shaking so badly I could barely brush it off. Got the engine started and backed out, drove as fast as I could. Drove until I had signal. Pulled over at a gas station and called the sheriff. Told them everything. They said they'd send someone, but also suggested it might have been kids messing around or someone checking if the place was empty. "Did you see anyone?" the dispatcher asked. "No, just heard them, saw the footprints." "Without a description, there's not much we can do." I never went back, had the agent handle everything. She called a week later and said someone had broken in properly. Door kicked open, stuff missing, my sleeping bag, fishing equipment, the food. Sheriff's office never found who did it. Said it was probably local kids who used empty properties as party spots. But I don't think it was kids. Kids would have been loud, reckless, broken in immediately. This was someone who wanted me scared, someone who wanted me to know they were watching. That's not kids. That's predators. I sold the property at a loss. Never went back for closing, signed papers remotely. Some developer bought it to tear down the cabin and build something new. 3 months after I sold it, the detective called me. They'd been investigating a series of break-ins at vacation properties in that county. Found a suspect, a local man in his 40s with priors for burglary and assault. When they searched his property, they found items from multiple cabins, including my uncle's fishing rods. But here's what made my blood run cold. They also found a collection of photographs. Hundreds of them. Pictures of vacation homes, of rental properties, of isolated cabins, all taken at night through windows. People sleeping, people eating, people completely unaware they were being watched and documented. My uncle's cabin was in those photos. Dozens of pictures going back years. The detective said this guy had been watching that property long before I ever showed up that weekend. He knew the routines, knew when it was empty, knew when someone new arrived. The night I was there, he wasn't trying to rob the place. He was establishing dominance, letting me know whose territory I was in. The rock through the window, the circling, the deliberate footsteps, all of it designed to terrify me into leaving so he could go back to doing what he'd been doing for years. The detective told me I was lucky. 2 of the properties in his photo collection, the people in those pictures, were never seen again. Missing persons cases that went cold. No bodies, no evidence, just people who'd vanished from isolated vacation homes and were never found. I asked if they thought he killed them. The detective paused before answering. We can't prove it, but those pictures were in a separate folder. He'd labeled it completed. I think about that sometimes, about how close I came to being in that folder. How had I stayed just a few hours longer? If I'd tried to tough it out until morning instead of running, I might have become another missing person statistic, another cold case in a file cabinet somewhere.
Last summer, my wife Rachel and I rented a lake house in the Finger Lakes for 10 days, our 15th anniversary. We live in Syracuse, so the drive was only about an hour and a half. Found it on a vacation rental site, and it looked perfect. 3 bedrooms, full kitchen, dock with a boat, very private and secluded. Got there on a Saturday afternoon in mid-July. Hot day, lake looked amazing, house was even nicer than the photos. Well-maintained, recently renovated, modern furniture. Spent that first day settling in. Swam, explored, grilled dinner, watched sunset from the dock. That night we sat on the deck with wine, enjoying being away from everything. Around 11, Rachel noticed headlights through the trees. There's a road along the shore, maybe 200 yards away, barely visible through vegetation. A car had pulled over and parked. "Wonder what they're doing," Rachel said. "Probably just looking at the lake, or broke down." We watched, but the car just sat there, lights on. Eventually went inside and went to bed. Next morning, I got up early for coffee, took it out on the deck, and that's when I saw him. A man standing at the property line between our house and the neighboring property, just standing in the trees, maybe 150 feet away, facing our house, staring. I thought maybe he was a jogger who'd stopped, but he wasn't dressed for jogging. Jeans and a dark jacket on a hot July morning, and he wasn't moving, just standing perfectly still. I waved, trying to be friendly. He didn't wave back. Didn't move. I stood and waved again, called out, "Morning!" Nothing. He just stood there. I went inside and looked from the kitchen window, but couldn't see him as well. Decided I was being paranoid. When I looked again 5 minutes later, he was gone. Rachel got up around 9, and I mentioned it. Where was he? Right at the property line, by those big pines. Maybe the owner checking on his place. That made sense. I felt better. We spent the day on the lake. The rental came with a small motorboat, packed a cooler and explored for hours. Didn't get back until almost dinner time. That's when we noticed the same car from the night before was in the same spot. Same dark sedan, same position, facing our house. "That's weird," Rachel said. "Why park there 2 nights in a row?"
We went inside, and I found myself looking out windows more than normal. The car stayed until after dark, then at some point left. Monday morning, I woke up early, went out with coffee, and the man was there again. Same spot, same clothes, same position, just staring at our house. This time I didn't wave, I just watched him, and he watched me. Neither of us moved for 2 full minutes, my coffee getting cold. Then Rachel came out, and the second she appeared, the man turned and walked back into the trees. Gone. "Did you see him?" I asked. "Who?" "That guy from yesterday. He was just standing there again." She could tell I was freaked out. "Let's call the rental company." We called, and they said the property to the south was privately owned, empty most of the year. Older couple who lived in Buffalo and only came up occasionally. "Should we be concerned?" I asked. "If he's on their property, there's not much we can do. If he comes onto your property or bothers you, call police." We decided to try to enjoy our vacation. Weren't going to let some weird neighbor ruin it. But Tuesday night, things got worse. We'd gone to bed around 11. I fell asleep, but woke up an hour later to Rachel sitting up. "Someone's outside," she whispered. I was instantly awake. "What?" "I heard footsteps on the deck." We both lay there listening. Then I heard it. Slow, deliberate footsteps on the wooden deck outside our bedroom window.
Someone walking around out there. I got out of bed quietly and grabbed my phone. 1 bar of signal, maybe. Went to the window and carefully looked through the curtain. There was a figure on the deck, looking into the sliding glass door to the living room. Dark, but enough moonlight to see the shape. Same build as the man from the property line. Rachel grabbed my arm, fingers digging in. The figure stood there for 30 seconds. Felt like forever. Then turned and walked down the deck steps, disappeared toward the lake. "We're calling the police," Rachel said, voice shaking. Called 911, got through, though connection was terrible. They said they'd send a deputy, but it would be at least 30 minutes. We spent those 30 minutes in the living room with all lights on, watching every window and door. Neither of us spoke. Deputy finally arrived around 1. Younger guy, took it seriously. Searched the property with his flashlight, checked doors and windows, found footprints on the deck matching what we described, more prints by the lake that disappeared into the water. "Whoever it was probably came by boat," he said. "These lakes, people can access any shoreline easily." "So what do we do?" Rachel asked. "Keep everything locked. Call if you see him again. I'll file a report and increase patrols." He left around 2 and we didn't sleep. Just sat in the living room with lights on, jumping at every sound. Next morning, we seriously considered leaving. But we'd been looking forward to this for months. Decided to stay, but be extra careful. Spent that day close to the house. Around noon, I walked down toward the property line. Wanted to see if there was evidence of him being there regularly. What I found made my blood run cold. There was a cleared spot in the trees where he'd been standing, brush cut away deliberately to create perfect line of sight to our house. And sitting on a tree stump in the center was a pair of binoculars. I grabbed them and ran back, showed Rachel. "He's been watching us," she said. "We're leaving right now." We threw everything in the car in 20 minutes, called police from the road once we had signal and told them what we found. They said they'd investigate, suggested we contact property management about a refund. Never heard what happened with the investigation. Property management was apologetic, gave partial refund, but said they couldn't control neighboring properties. Police told us a week later they'd searched but hadn't found anyone, and without clear description or evidence of actual criminal activity beyond trespassing, there wasn't much they could do. Rachel and I haven't taken a vacation since. Talk about it sometimes, but every time we start looking, one of us brings up what happened and we cancel. 2 months after we got home, I got a call from a detective in New York. They'd been investigating a series of assaults at vacation rentals in the Finger Lakes region. Women staying at lake houses, attacked in the middle of the night by someone who'd accessed the property by boat. 3 confirmed cases, maybe more that went unreported. The detective wanted to know if I could identify anyone from a photo lineup. They had a suspect, a local man who worked as a boat mechanic and had access to the lake. He lived alone on a property about 2 miles from where we'd stayed. I looked at the photos. The 5th one made me stop breathing. It was him, the man from the property line. Same build, same face I'd barely seen in the darkness but would never forget. "That's him," I said. The detective was quiet for a moment. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." They arrested him a week later. When they searched his property, they found dozens of rental listing printouts, maps with vacation homes marked, notebooks with schedules of when properties were occupied. He'd been systematically targeting women at lake rentals for almost 2 years. But here's what haunts me. The detective told me we were lucky. All his other victims had been women staying alone or with other women. We were the first rental with a man present that he'd approached. The detective thinks that's why he didn't go through with whatever he'd planned. He was testing us, watching to see if Rachel was ever alone, and when she never was, he moved on to an easier target. 3 days after we left, another couple rented that same house. But it wasn't a couple, it was 2 women, college friends on vacation. He came back the second night they were there, broke in through the sliding door while they were sleeping. One of them woke up and screamed, fought back. He ran. They called 911. That's what led to his arrest. The detective said if we hadn't reported the binoculars, hadn't given them that evidence, they might not have connected him to those other cases. Our report was what started them looking at the properties along that shoreline.
Those 2 women were lucky. The 3 before them weren't. He'd attacked them in isolated rentals, places where screaming wouldn't bring help. All 3 survived, but all 3 were traumatized. The detectives said our case, our evidence, is what finally stopped him. I should feel good about that. We helped catch him, helped stop him from hurting more people. But all I can think about is how close we came. How if Rachel had gotten up early one morning instead of me, if she'd gone out on that deck alone, if I'd gone into town for supplies and left her there by herself for even an hour. We dodged something that night, something that was hunting us, studying us, waiting for the right moment. And the only reason it didn't happen was dumb luck. The luck that I was there, that we were never separated, that we found those binoculars before he could make his move. That's what keeps me up at night. Not what happened, but what almost did. And knowing that somewhere, right now, someone else is renting a beautiful, isolated lake house, thinking they're safe, thinking they're alone, not realizing they're being watched through windows, that someone is out there in the darkness, making plans, waiting for the perfect moment to turn their vacation into a nightmare.